Think Škoda and you probably think of cars that are roomy and good value, and that's true of this Škoda Octavia estate. But it also has some qualities which you might not immediately associate with Škoda. That's because this is the VRS, and those three letters tell you that it's the high performance model, much sportier than your typical Octavia. In fact, this car has 265 horsepower, so it promises hot hatch performance with family estate practicality. But the question is, how well does it tow? Well, to find out, we're going to tow over all sorts of different roads. We'll also spend a lot of time in solo driving, so we'll be able to tell you what the car is like to live with from day to day. We'll take a thorough look inside the cabin, and we'll consider value for money and running costs before we deliver our verdict. For our towing test, we're borrowing an Eldis Avante 462 from Raymond James Caravans in Atherstone. The VRS is very responsive to the throttle. In fact, it's a little too sharp in the normal setting. It's worth selecting the Eco mode, which makes it easier to maneuver smoothly, especially when you're hitching up. But once you're out onto the open road, that performance, that strength that the engine has becomes a really big advantage. You can reach 60 miles per hour very easily in this car, even when you're towing, and holding speed on hilly roads is an absolute doddle. You rarely need more than half throttle. Now, the disadvantage to towing with such a powerful petrol car, you would imagine, is fuel economy, and that's something we'll come back to when we've finished towing. Stability is very good indeed. The VRS has firmer suspension than the rest of the Octavia range, and it also sits 15mm lower. And that contributes to a really secure feel at speed. The Škoda is very definitely in charge of the Caravan. However, with so much power going through the front wheels, it's easy for those wheels to spin briefly when you're pulling away from junctions or when you're making a hill start. In everyday driving, the Škoda is quick and comfortable. Now, if you compare the VRS with the very best hot hatches, you might be a little bit disappointed. It's not as involving as, say, a Honda Civic Type R, but then you're going to fit an awful lot more luggage in this car than you would in your average hot hatch. So perhaps it's better to think of the Octavia VRS as an estate car with some added vim and verve, and that's a brief that the car fulfills very well. The suspension is firmer than standard, but still perfectly comfortable, and the car will easily cover long motorway drives. This car doesn't have this particular option, but you can specify it with adaptive dampers. It's an option that we've tried on other VW Group cars, and you can make the car more comfortable or sportier depending on your preferences, and it's probably money well spent. Let's look inside the cabin. Škoda made quite a few interior changes as part of the most recent facelift for the Octavia, so there are different materials used inside, and there's now a 13-inch touchscreen infotainment system alongside the digital driver's display. As part of the new infotainment, you've lost the separate air conditioning controls. They're now running along the bottom of the touchscreen, but they're always visible. They're always there where you can see them. You don't have to go into a menu to adjust the air conditioning, but I'd still prefer separate physical controls. Otherwise, Škoda gets the fundamentals right. The driving position is sound. There's plenty of adjustment for both the seat and the steering wheel, and you get lots of storage dotted around the cabin. So there are healthy sized door bins, and in this case they've actually got a little bin inside the door bin, which is a nice touch. You've got wireless charging for compatible smartphones. There are a couple of cup holders here, as you'd expect. There's more storage under the driver's armrest, and you get a few little touches to just give the cabin a bit of a lift compared with a regular Škoda Octavia. You get the red stitching here, the carbon fibre effect trim, which may or may not be to your taste, but does give the car a bit more of a sporting flavour. There's more red trim here around the steering wheel, and a little red V for VRS to remind you that this is the fast version of the Octavia estate. So it's a practical and comfortable place to spend time. That's the front of the car. Let's go and take a look in the back. Rear seat space has long been one of the Octavia's strengths, and nothing has changed in that respect. There's still loads of space in the back of the car. So even set up for a tall driver, there's plenty of space behind the driver's seat. There's good head and leg room. You get air vents between the front seats to keep everyone at a comfortable temperature. And there are a couple of USB-C ports here to keep devices charged up. And a very neat little touch, as well as the map pockets that you commonly get on the back of front seats, there are extra little pouches to store a mobile phone while you're charging it, which I think is a clever little feature. You get a couple of cup holders here, as well as cup holders within the armrest at the back. They fold out like this, so you're certainly not going to go thirsty in the back of the Octavia. If you're travelling with children rather than adults, then you'll be pleased to see that there are ISOFIX mounting points on the outer rear seats. There's also a set of ISOFIX mounting points on the front seat, which is a really useful feature to have. So it's a practical and roomy cabin. Let's go and take a look in the boot. So, as you can see, there's loads of space in the boot of the Octavia estate. In fact, there's 640 litres, plenty of room for a family's holiday bags, and that capacity puts many more expensive estate cars to shame. It's not quite perfect though. You do have this drop from the sill to the boot floor, and that's something you can fix if you go for the variable height boot floor as an optional extra. But really, I think on a practical car like this, that ought to be standard. Now, if you need even more space and the rear seats aren't occupied, you can drop them down by tugging on these levers on either side of the tailgate. Now, as for the tow bar, at the time of our test in the summer of 2025, the tow bar and electrics cost £1,000. They drop down at the push of a button, although you do have to lock the tow bar into position the last little way by hand. The list price of the Octavia Estate vRS is £41,070, although it should be possible to haggle a discount. On paper, running costs appear to be high, with an official combined figure of 39.5 to 40.3 mpg. However, we saw a reasonable 47 miles to the gallon while driving on the motorway and 26.1 mpg while towing. The car sits in Group 27 of 50 for insurance. For most of us, there are better all-round buys in the Octavia range, but if you want a car that combines superb practicality with a sporty drive, then the VRS could be the car for you.
When you've watched the video, please do subscribe to the Camping and Caravanning Club's channel if you haven't already. Click on the notification button and you'll never miss any of the club's tow car, caravan, camping and motorhome content. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to click on the thumbs up button to like it and let us know what you think in the comments.